The Wrong Soldier. Chapter 1. The Reckoning. On a foggy morning in the hills of Colorado, the Tactical Training Center was waking up. The sprawling complex, set deep in the wilderness, was a blend of military-grade obstacle courses, mock towns, and deep woods, all designed for soldiers to push their limits. It was a place where only the toughest survived, where the lines between civilian life and military discipline blurred. Zane Harper had been through it all. Special Forces, 5 tours overseas, a decorated soldier, and now, after a quiet discharge, he was a civilian contractor. But his service never really left him. It never really could. The training at the center had been his life, his identity. Today, he was on the other side. Today, he was playing a role in the very training exercises that had shaped his entire career. His job was simple: act as the enemy. The Red Team. His unit, consisting of former operatives, mercenaries, and retired soldiers, was hired by the military to test the readiness of active duty soldiers. They were the last line of defense, the mock adversaries that taught soldiers the value of caution. As Zane checked his gear, securing his helmet and making sure his M4 rifle was in working order, a low rumble interrupted his thoughts. He looked up, brow furrowed. A group of motorcycles roared toward the entrance of the base, the noise cutting through the morning calm. The bikers slowed, pulling in front of the gate. Zane saw the leather jackets adorned with patches, Harley-Davidson insignias, skulls, and some that looked like military unit emblems. The kind of gang that didn't just ride for fun, but for power. Chapter 2. The Bikers. The bikers dismounted, their boots hitting the dirt with purpose. They were loud, brash, and uninvited. A few of them laughed as they approached, their swagger larger than life. The leader of the pack, a tall man with a weathered face and a scar running down his left cheek, walked up to the guard shack. His name was Ray Razor Miller, a former Army grunt who'd left the service with a chip on his shoulder. "Hey," Razor called out, waving a hand at the soldier on duty. "We're here to see the show. Heard this place was training some real badasses. Thought we'd check it out." The young soldier at the gate didn't know how to respond. He was just an MP doing his job, but this felt off. This is a closed military training facility. You're not authorized." "I don't care about your rules, kid," Razor sneered. "You gonna let us in, or do we have to go around and make our own way? You know, like we used to do in the Army?" The bikers' words were a thinly veiled threat. Razor's gang was known for pushing the boundaries. It was clear they weren't here just to watch. They were here to make trouble. Zane watched from the distance, his instincts kicking in. Something wasn't right. He'd seen men like Razor before. Tough, rough, but also unpredictable. He could already feel the tension rising, the kind that always came when people from different worlds collided. But this was different. Razor and his crew didn't belong here. Chapter 3. Tensions rising. The MPs hesitated, and Razor didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped past the soldier and toward the gates, his crew following closely behind. Zane observed the scene, already preparing for the worst. "Hey, hold up!" The young MP tried to protest, but Razor simply waved him off. Zane moved swiftly, his tactical training kicking in. He stepped in front of the bikers, blocking their path. His tall frame was imposing, his presence undeniable. "This is a military base. You don't just walk in," he said firmly, his voice low and controlled. Razor stopped in his tracks, sizing up the man in front of him. "And who the hell are you?" he growled, eyes narrowing. "Some kind of rent-a-cop?" "I'm not a cop," Zane replied coolly. "I'm someone who doesn't want to see your guys get hurt." Ray snorted. "You think you can take us all on, soldier?" Zane didn't flinch. "I don't need to, but I will if it comes to that." The two men locked eyes for a long moment. Zane could see the calculation in Razor's gaze. The bikers were tough, but they weren't soldiers. They didn't have the discipline or the skills to back up their bravado. Razor knew he could probably overpower the guard, but the question was whether it would be worth it. "Let's go, Razor," one of the bikers behind him said, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. But Razor wasn't done. "Nah, we came here to see what's going on." "A bunch of ex-soldiers training? This ought to be interesting." Zane knew that wasn't going to end well. The bikers were looking for a fight, and no matter how calm the situation seemed, it was on the verge of spiraling out of control. Chapter 4: The First Move. It happened so fast, Zane barely had time to react. One of the bikers, a hulking figure with tattoos covering his arms, took a step forward and shoved Zane. It wasn't much of a shove, more like a challenge. But Zane saw the intent behind it. He moved instantly, grabbing the biker's wrist and twisting, sending him to the ground with a well-executed maneuver. The other bikers scattered, unsure of what to do. Ray's face twisted with fury. "That's it. You're dead, soldier." Before Zane could respond, the bikers lunged at him. Zane was already in motion. He dropped low, sweeping his leg out and sending one of the bikers crashing to the ground. Another tried to land a punch, but Zane was faster. He blocked the punch, driving his elbow into the man's ribs. There was a sickening crack, and the biker gasped, crumpling to the ground. The remaining bikers hesitated. Zane was calm, controlled, but his movements were like lightning fast, precise and ruthless. Razor backed away, his eyes wide. "You're insane, man," he spat. "You think you're still in the army?" "No," Zane said flatly. "I'm just someone who knows how to handle idiots like you." Ray glared, but the fight had gone out of him. He looked at his men, who were groaning and struggling to get back to their feet. None of them were injured too badly, but their pride was certainly bruised. "You've made your point," Razor muttered, stepping back. "But you better believe we'll be back. You can't keep us out forever." Zane watched them walk away, a small smile tugging at his lips. It wasn't a victory. It was just business as usual. Chapter 5: Consequences. The bikers left, but the incident wasn't over. Razor didn't forget slights. He never did. A few weeks later, Zane found himself standing at the center of an even bigger storm. It started with small things, scratched tires, a few threats posted online. Then, one night, Zane's home was broken into. The bikers, clearly emboldened by their prior defeat, had come for revenge. But they made a mistake. Zane didn't panic. He didn't run. He went on the offense. He knew the layout of his neighborhood. He knew the roads, the alleys, the blind spots. By the time Razor and his gang rolled into town, they were walking into a trap. Zane had already called in some favors from his old contacts, ex-soldiers, mercenaries, and people who owed him. The bikers found themselves surrounded, outnumbered, and outmatched. When the dust settled, Razor was kneeling on the ground, his face bruised and bloody. Zane stood over him, calm as ever. "I told you to leave it alone," he said quietly. Razor's eyes flickered with the recognition of defeat, but there was something else there, too, fear. You think this is over?" Zane didn't respond. He simply turned and walked away. Chapter 6: The Final Lesson. The bikers never came back to the training center. Razor learned his lesson the hard way. As for Zane, he went on with his life, always ready, always aware. The world was a dangerous place. He had learned that in combat. But he had also learned this sometimes. You had to teach the wrong people that lesson the hard way. And Razor? He never underestimated a soldier again.